What we have to do is to be credible. What we have to do is to be on the ground everywhere. What we have to do is to show that we can bring success after success after success. Who leads them? The brand is bust. The brand is broken. People will not go back to them. They've let us down so badly. That my promise to professionalise the party is now on track. I also promise you that in future we will be vetting candidates rigorously at all levels.
Reform UK just won 41% of the vote in a Labour heartland. Meanwhile, Starmer's party limped in with a mere 18%. This isn't just a defeat, it's a political earthquake. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. From Wales to Westminster, the numbers don't lie. We're witnessing the potential collapse of a political giant. But how did Labour fall so far, so fast?
I promise you that. We don't want bigots. We don't want people who think that way, because we represent the silent, decent majority of this great country that we live in.
I was told at the time that I must apologise to Labour's mayor in London. Now, let me tell you now, conference, I will never apologise to that.
As for Labour, I mean, goodness me, have you ever known a new Prime Minister get off to a worse start than Keir Starmer?
It all started with a handshake and a few seemingly innocuous words. After meeting European Council President Antonio Costa, Keir Starmer confidently declared, "The UK is stronger when it works in lockstep with its closest international partners." Little did he know, those words would ignite a political firestorm. Starmer's comments hinted at closer cooperation with the EU, suggesting it would boost the UK's safety, border security, and economic growth. On the surface, it seemed like a reasonable stance. But in post-Brexit Britain, where wounds from the referendum still run deep, Starmer's words struck a nerve. The backlash was swift and fierce. Brexit supporters saw red, interpreting Starmer's remarks as a betrayal of the UK's hard-won independence. A veteran Eurosceptic even warned that Starmer's approach could lead the UK towards an EA-type model similar to Norway and Iceland.
I've never, in the half a century I've looked at politics, I've never seen a Prime Minister lose popularity as quickly as this. And have now done things like attacking the farmers, taking money away from pensioners, that they didn't say they would do in the run-up to the campaign in their manifesto. So there's a real breach of trust. It's ironic, they're in real trouble, and yet they've got a huge parliamentary majority. Things can only get worse.
A scenario that would involve compliance with EU laws and free movement. For many Leave voters, this was their worst nightmare come to life. Reform UK, ever the opportunists, seized on Starmer's misstep with both hands. They positioned themselves as the true defenders of Brexit, contrasting sharply with Labour's perceived softening stance. The result? A seismic shift in public opinion that sent shockwaves through Westminster. Recent polling data paints a stark picture of Labour's decline. The party's support has plummeted by 9 points to a mere 25%. Meanwhile, Reform UK has surged by 8 points, reaching 22%, a gap that's narrowed to just 3 percentage points. These numbers aren't just statistics, they represent a fundamental reshaping of the political landscape. Political analysts are scrambling to make sense of this dramatic turn of events. Many point to Starmer's EU comments as the catalyst for Labour's freefall. The party that once stood as the voice of the working class now finds itself struggling to connect with its base. As one expert put it, Starmer's remarks have exposed a deep disconnect between Labour's leadership and its traditional supporters.
A mile wide, an inch deep, but this is what we've talked about the real change that the UK needs, which is a system that is not the first past the post scenario anymore.
I mean, the whole thing's absolutely bonkers, and it needs to be reformed along with much else in our country. For every single Labour MP, there are 34,000 votes, right? Wow. For every Reform MP, there are 815,000 votes.
But the most damning evidence of Labour's troubles came in the form of a local by-election. In Blackbrook St Helens Council, an area once considered a Labour stronghold, Reform UK clinched a stunning victory. They secured 41.1% of the vote, leaving Labour trailing far behind with a paltry 18.4%. This result isn't just a defeat, it's a clear signal that the political winds are shifting. As we dig deeper into Labour's challenges, one thing becomes clear. Starmer's EU blunder was just the tip of the iceberg. A series of unpopular decisions have left the party reeling, and voters are taking notice. The question now is, can Labour recover, or is this the beginning of the end for Starmer's leadership? While Starmer's EU gaffe may have been the spark, Labour's troubles run far deeper. As we peel back the layers of their recent policy decisions, a disturbing pattern emerges. Just how bad is the damage, and can the party's traditional strongholds withstand the onslaught? Labour's recent moves have left many voters scratching their heads. A $4 billion tax hike, stripping millions of pensioners of their winter fuel payments, and imposing death duties on farmers. These aren't conservative policies, but Labour's latest brilliant ideas. It's as if the party is deliberately trying to alienate its core supporters. The backlash has been swift and severe, particularly in Labour's traditional strongholds. Wales, once a reliable Labour bastion, is now witnessing a seismic shift. Reform UK is polling at an astounding 28%, surpassing Labour's 26%. This isn't just a temporary blip, it's a fundamental realignment of Welsh politics that could have far-reaching consequences. Labour's attempts to regain support have been confused and ineffective. On one hand, they're trying to appeal to their traditional working-class base. On the other, they're making policy decisions that seem tailor-made to push those very voters away. It's a political tightrope act that's rapidly unraveling. The changing demographics of Labour's voter base are adding another layer of complexity to this political drama. As the party struggles to maintain its grip on traditional supporters, it's also failing to attract new voters. The result is a shrinking, increasingly dissatisfied base that's ripe for the picking by parties like Reform UK. As we dig deeper into Labour's troubles, the full extent of their losses becomes clear. Since the general election, the party has suffered a net loss of 25 council seats. Most of these losses have gone to the Conservatives, adding insult to injury for Labour. It's not just a few isolated defeats, it's a trend that's reshaping the political landscape across the country. The question now is, what are the long-term consequences for Labour and Starmer's leadership? Can the party recover from this series of self-inflicted wounds, or are we witnessing the beginning of a major realignment in British politics? As we explore these questions, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The political landscape is more volatile than ever, and no party's position is safe. As the dust settles on Labour's political earthquake, the long-term consequences for the party and Starmer's leadership look increasingly grim. The combined vote share of Labour and the Conservatives has plummeted to a historic low of 52%, signaling a seismic shift in British politics. This power vacuum is being filled by parties like Reform UK, who are capitalizing on voter dissatisfaction and policy missteps. Tim Montgomery's words ring ominously true. It's going to become more and more obvious that Labour is going to fail economically. With a dark cloud hanging over the economy and Labour's credibility in tatters, one has to wonder, is this the end of the two-party system as we know it? The volatility of today's political landscape is a stark reminder that no party's position is secure. As traditional strongholds crumble and new allegiances form, British politics is entering uncharted territory. The question now is not if change will come, but how dramatic and far-reaching it will be.